Okay, so it's come to light at this present time. There's a saturation in chemicals and nanolipid particulates and heavy metals, parasites, molds. All these different things are now very prevalent in the environment and in many things people are taking. So it's very imperative right now that we put a little bit more intention and focus into cleaning our body, a purging process, but also a nourishing at the same time, as to counteract this inundation of substances that are disharmonic to our homeostasis. So it's really, really important we start to get to know our bodies and clean and purify and heal on a physical, emotional and spiritual level. You know, it's a multifaceted experience. And the first and foremost thing before you get to the physical cleansing, which I encourage because that is a very integral part of this journey, is the attitude one has for the process. There will be times, of course, we'll feel, fear or anxiety, but how we approach these feelings when they arise and how we can actually shift the polarity and transmute them into something that's beneficial and life-giving for us and those of us around us. It's going to really impact our reality and our physical vessel and our emotional body as well. So really, really important to come back to fearlessness through courage and strength, and nurturing care for oneself, tentative care. Because when undertaking such a process, it's also a journey of knowing and loving thyself in a way it's genuinely nourishing and caring and seeing everything for what it is and accepting, but being willing to change things, being willing to transform due to that awareness. Because once you actually see it, it might be difficult to see a certain reality, especially with health. A lot of people are going through a lot of health issues right now. And once there's a chronic disease involved, it's very difficult for people to be in alignment with their higher purpose and journey, because you're always unwell. You're constantly having to maintain or cope under very testing conditions. But it can also be an opportunity to heal on that physical and spiritual, emotional levels by putting some dedication and self-care and discipline into one's daily life. And it doesn't have to be this rapid, all of a sudden transformation, like from tomorrow I'm waking up and I'm only doing this and being really hard on oneself, because that's going to stifle the process. You may do it for a few weeks or something, and it's just too much of a challenge to do all at once on that extreme level. It's like somebody that's never done a lot of exercise and then you tell them to run a marathon. It's just going to be torture for the person. They probably won't physically be able to do it. So it's a process of building up, strengthening all these different parts of ourselves through gently introducing things. So, for example, finding a certain herb, for example, that would really benefit your body. Highly recommend muscle testing to see if this is what works for you, or seeing, a naturopath or someone like that that's quite good at being able to find the herb that's going to work for you. And you can start by doing what they call in, South America, a dieta, like a one-on-one relationship with that plant, and really starting to discover and know the plant. So working with just one to start with if you've never done this before, because we have to build up here. And it could be something quite, I'll say, innocuous, it's everywhere, like peppermint, something like this. Dandelion, I just can't stop talking about how great dandelion is because it's absolutely amazing. Something like peppermint where you actually grow the herb yourself, nurture it, look after it, work with it, connect with it, smell it, taste it raw, experiment with ways to use it, really see if that's what your body needs, or maybe somebody around you needs it. A great thing I heard from a herbalist once, I think it was my mother, is that the herbs you need are growing all around you if you live in a rural environment where herbs are able to grow or some kind of greenery is there. I know it's more difficult if you're in a desert or a city, like a very built-up environment. So that's when I encourage people to grow things in pots and stuff like that. But if you can get good at starting to identify herbs that are in your area, and Western herbs are incredible. I live here in Australia, and there's some incredible original herbs here as well. Very powerful, potent medicines. But the Western herbs have managed to find their way into the environment here, and they've been here for 200 and something years. So they're quite adapted, and most of them aren't really doing any harm. There's a few introduced species that do cause an imbalance within the natural environment, but a lot of them have integrated themselves into the environment in a very beneficial way, and a lot of the native animals and stuff like that will eat them, and they're part of the ecosystem now. And in my area, I can walk around and find some beautiful fresh herbs to work with. It's quite incredible to watch the seasons and see what comes up at different times in my area. All year round, I always have, the plantain, the dandelion, the balas flower in my lawn just growing there. And then there's other amazing herbs that pop up around here, the yarrow, the century, the mallow, the comfrey. There's so many. It's just incredible. And then we've got more native ones like the yam daisy and the acacia. And yeah, there's so much here. And they're also foods. And they're not just a herb that you use in a tincture or a salve or a pill. You can make very nutritious, beautiful, delicious food out of these things. One thing, I know some friends of mine, make a delicious bread using the dandelion and the yam daisy and a few other things, wattle seed and stuff like this. And it is like the elven bread from the Lord of the Rings. It's absolutely phenomenal. It's the most beautiful, light, nutritious superfood that you could possibly imagine. And I think that's something really important that we all need to get back to, is that grassroots level with what's around us and how do we utilize it. Because I know plenty of amazing herbs from all over the world that can have these benefits for clearing and cleansing the body, but it's about accessibility and cost, so we can't always get a hold of these things. If we do, and we can, great, give it a go, but I do emphasize primarily the importance of the herbs in your natural environment and how essential they are for our health, because they're biodynamic, they're in our area, they're in tune with the same cycles as us. And the other benefit of that is they're fresh. And something like a smoothie with these fresh wild herbs in it is just so incredibly nourishing and delicious and life-giving. And it's such a great way to get the full roughage of all these greens, these organic wild greens, in with other things. So it's palatable. The taste is very pleasant. I usually make a smoothie. I first soak some seeds, either the flax or the chia seed, to get some of the more essential fatty acids and zinc and stuff like that. And then I'll put in, if I have something like cacao nibs or some cashews or something like that, or a couple of dates, whatever's available, whatever I've got around. And then I'll put in the herbs I have growing around at the time, which is usually a lot of dandelion. I have a bacopa brahmi plant that I use. Plantain, beautiful fresh calendula flowers if they're around, the Bellis daisy flowers, stinging nettle, another really, really good herb. Very, very cleansing, blood cleaning herb. Beautiful. And that can grow locally where I am as well. The yarrow, the mallow. Whatever's going on. So I put them in, and then I usually give the blender a bit of a buzz just with all those things after the seeds have absorbed enough water and they've gone kind of gluggy. Blend this up, and then I'll add whatever else I have next, which is usually as a core berries. It's from fresh berries and banana or mango or whatever fruit you like. That I usually freeze it because it makes it cold and yummy. Really good in hot weather especially. And adding then whatever superfood powders I have. I have some barley grass powder here and some alfalfa powder and some spirulina or chlorella. Sometimes I find, turmeric or cinnamon. They've all got medicinal properties, moringa. I tend not to put something that's really bitter and disgusting in. I go for more neutral flavoured herbs when making a smoothie like this. Even with the dandelion, I use the flowers and the stem, not the actual, the leaves, because the leaves are very bitter. There's other ways you can do things with the leaves. Borage flowers are beautiful. Red clover, once again, fantastic for cleaning the blood and helping our bodies function at homeostasis. But you really need to start looking into the terrain of your area and what's available. And if there isn't anything available, muscle testing for what herbs you feel your body's going to resonate with, and starting to grow a few of these things. Also got a lot of wormwood growing around where I live, and that's an incredible herb for all this parasitic stuff that is definitely an aspect to why people are having a hard time with their health right now. It's interesting that when you look at this major issue that's going down, everyone's talking about the ivar, the horse worming medicine, and it's an antiparasitic, and so is hydroxychloroquine, which is usually used in malaria, which comes from the cinchona plant. So it's actually a very old remedy using the cinchona, especially in homeopathic form. It's brilliant for preventing malaria. And malaria's got that microbial parasitic property. So I believe it's very interesting that what's going on now, there's definitely a correlation with the parasites, and people are finding these aluminium-based, carbon-based parasites in people now, these hydroparasites and some very unusual things that modern mainstream medicine doesn't really want to look at. So I really emphasize with people, if you haven't done one recently, do a parasite cleanse. Really, really look into, the Hulda-Clark cleanse is great, but I think we need more arsenal. So I feel like adding extra things to that is really important. Black seed oil, getting a high quality organic black seed oil is really important. That will get rid of a lot of things, and it's very nourishing. I can't say it tastes very good, but you can get it in capsules if it's hard to stomach. The same with the wild oregano oil. I say when you're taking oils internally, be very, very careful. Don't take a lot. I said 1 or 2 drops is definitely enough, in my opinion. And make sure you get the wild oregano oil, not the everyday oregano oil. And you want it to be food grade, organic. So yeah, do a bit of research with that before taking something like that. But what I've noticed with oregano and thyme and all these Italian herbs are very powerful in getting rid of nano tech stuff and really enabling the body to purge any kind of parasitic entities on a physical and spiritual level. So highly recommend the thyme, the mandarin, the oregano, even rosemary. They've all got brilliant properties, and you can grow them so easily at home. Also the peppermint, another brilliant herb, or just basic mint. And it's very easy to consume a lot of this. I put mint in my smoothie as well. Also put in my smoothie, going back to that, like medicinal mushrooms, any other powders, whatever I've got available, and maybe a little bit of maple syrup if I'm feeling it to sweeten it up if I haven't got dates, and blend all that up, and it's delicious. If you've got cacao, I'll put some cacao in there. It's just such a nourishing, beautiful drink, and it really, really helps you feel back in an alkaline state, and then we can heal. When our body's in an alkaline state, it can work in its best way to balance the systems and cleanse out what's no longer needed or was never needed in our bodies. There's other things too that can be really important to take right now, especially a lot of the trace minerals and vitamins, because they're not in the soil as much anymore because of the monocultural farming techniques. The soil in most places now is very depleted, because usually we would get our nutrients from eating the vegetables and the fruits and stuff like that. All these trace minerals, like zinc, selenium, magnesium, iodine, manganese, all these things were more prevalent in our food. But since the soil, through this phosphate fertilizer monoculture technique, we've depleted our soil, and these natural trace minerals are no longer there. If you're eating a conventional processed diet and you think you eat vegetables, you really need to start growing your own. If you can't, go to a farmer's market, find someone that does grow their own spray-free, organic farming techniques, permaculture techniques, back how we used to eat. We ate like this for hundreds of years, and it's only recently in the Industrial Revolution that we've gone to these techniques of mass production, and that's really damaging our immune systems and our bodies, when the two main causes of disease is deficiency or toxicity, and that usually starts in the gut. There's over toxicity of all these, pesticides and fertilizers that are chemical, and all these things we're being sprayed with, and it just goes on and on. And also there's a deficiency because the soil isn't giving us the minerals and vitamins we need in our food. So substituting with some high quality vitamins and minerals is really important. Do your research into certain brands, because not all of them make high quality. Seeing if you can get it from a reliable good source. And really encourage zinc at the moment, really important. And we're looking at how people are looking at how the quercetin can enable the zinc to go into the cell. So that's fantastic too. So quercetin, zinc are really, really essential in this process right now, because we need those minerals, and the magnesium as well. Vitamin C, very high doses. Everyone's getting into the liposomal at the moment. I think that's fantastic. It really, really works. I find when I take it, I just feel fantastic. It makes a huge effect on my body. And then, what else can you do? The MSM, which is really, really good, also for helping the glutathione levels and cleaning out the body. What else have we got here? I'd say NAC as well. That's been a big one for everyone at the moment, and it does work brilliantly. I've really found I've had good results with NAC, so another really good one to look at. There's a lot of things that we could be doing with the Parasite Cleanse. I suggest people do a Parasite Cleanse for 90 days, because the full cycle of a parasite is for 90 days, and you don't want to just kill the live parasites. Like a lot of these cleanses only encourage a couple of weeks. I would suggest doing it for 90 days, but supporting the liver through this process. That's why emphasize the glutathione or the NAC to help you do that, and the MSM prior to doing it and whilst doing it. ALA as well, alpha lifolic acid, is really good whilst doing this too. And then the key herbs are the antiparasitics. You've got your wormwood, your cloves, your black or green walnut hull, and then, you know, Hulda Clark recommends those and the amino acids. But yeah, like the glutathione I recommend as well as the neem. So neem is a brilliant Indian herb. It has such fantastic antiparasitic qualities, and it's very nourishing as well. And also eating a lot of fresh herbs that I mentioned, you know, all the Italian herbs alongside in your diet whilst doing it, and eating a very simple whole food diet whilst undergoing the cleanse. So a lot of just veggies cooked up with some you can eat plenty of garlic whilst doing this, because garlic is also very much an antiparasitic. Making sure it's high quality and good garlic without a lot of pesticides or anything. And cooking up vegetables and having something like I don't know, rice or quinoa or something very easy on the gut, buckwheat, something like that, with vegetables and just some fruits, or the smoothie I spoke about, and just doing that as much as you can during the cleanse. You can do the full-on 2 weeks of parasite cleansing with the full dose that they recommend on the Hulda Clark. Like, do the actual Hulda Clark protocol first for the few weeks they recommend, and then go on to a maintenance dose. So just taking once a day black walnut, wormwood, or green walnut, that works as well, clove, and also the neem, and then the liver support, bit of milk thistle, the glutathione, and eating that diet as much as you can, staying away from refined sugars and genetically engineered things. So things like canola, really big no-no. It's not food. Don't eat it. A lot of these oils are not good for us. All the additives, all the numbers on the food, white flours, processed white sugar. You know, if you want something sweet, make that smoothie, or, you know, eat some dates, some fruit, something like that. There's a lot of, candida diets and stuff like that where they tell you to give up fruit as well. And you can do this if you really want to starve the body. But I feel that the herbs I'm mentioning are really going to pull a lot of stuff out of the body. You know, they're powerful. And then after you've done the parasites, because I think that's really important, then you can move on, like give your body a bit of a rest for a while and just take some maintenance herbs and eat well. And then go into a more of a chelation protocol. You want to remove the heavy metal buildup and pesticides and other chemicals that have been built up in our T receptor cells and stuff like this. So this is really, really important. And a brilliant herb for this is cilantro. There's the smoothie, the medical medium detox smoothie for heavy metals. That's a really good one. For removing metals out of the body. Activated charcoal apple pectin is really great for getting radiation and other metals out of the body. So is aloe vera. I have an aloe vera plant, so you can eat it in a raw form. There's a variety called candelabra, which I have, and it doesn't have any bitterness. It's very palatable and easy to eat. So if you can get a hold of a candelabra aloe vera and start eating a slice of that every day, especially if you've had a lot of x-rays or you've traveled a lot, you've gone through those radiation scanners a lot, the aloe and the apple pectin really helps remove the radiation. And doing coffee enemas as well, fantastic. We can look at MMS as well, looking up Jim Humble's protocols, checking that out. really following the protocol strictly, though. I think that's important with MMS. You really want to be careful with that one. I've done it before, and I found it was quite intense for me with what I was going through. So it does work, in my opinion, from my observation. But I had to be a bit more gentle. And going back to that, about how I was talking about introducing things one by one, it's also that process of letting go of something if you're ready to replace something else. So, for example, there might be something that you're doing that isn't good for your body and isn't beneficial. Just seeing how you can transform that. Like, for example, a coffee addiction. This is something that's come up for me. I don't drink a lot, but I drink coffee most days, and I've just started working with the yerba mate, and it's so beautiful. It's so such a clean morning buzz, and it still has caffeine in it, but it is such a nourishing, incredible herb. So having this in the morning instead of a coffee, I feel so much better. So that's something I'm slowly introducing and waning out the coffee, and bringing in the yerba mate and other herbal teas and stuff like this, and keeping up the smoothies. But yeah, with the smoothies, you don't want to be too cool either. If you're in a cold climate, having some more like warm, nourishing, soups and stuff like that, broths is going to be really good for your body. You don't want to make yourself too cool and damp. So really go with what your body needs. If you're cool and damp, you need more heat. If you've got too much heat, you need more cool. So really observing what's going on with your physical body and tuning into what you need. And through that dieta with a plant, and you can do a few weeks with one plant and then adopt another one and just see what works for you. A very easy thing is, say you're aware of an issue you have. You might have an intestinal issue or a liver issue. You can go online and you can search, or you can look in a book on herbs for something for that particular symptom, and a list of herbs will come up, and something might come up on there. For example, milk thistle, for the liver. And I have milk thistle growing wild where I am. It does grow wild a lot of places on earth. So yeah, you can get the milk thistle and work with it. Get to know it, identify it, know what it looks like, sit with it, water it, plant some, grow some, plant a seed, learn with that plant, and then start making teas out of it, or seeing how to make a tincture out of it, or putting some in capsules and eating it, and just learning the different ways you can work with it. Cooking up the leaves. The milk thistle is eaten in some parts of the world as a food, but you've got to cook it. Very important. So yeah, there's all these different ways we work with different herbs, and that is the dieta with the herbs that is really powerful and so part of the healing journey, because the herbs aren't doing it for us, but you can think of them as allies, these plant medicine allies that are, when you give them respect and reverence, they choose to assist and facilitate in one's natural process of healing that we all have, but sometimes a little bit of support from a plant ally can really help. And then there's the synergistic combinations of different herbs together. We've also got to keep that in mind, that there's certain herbs that work together in a multi-leveled, multi-dimensional way that's a key to unlocking some kind of ailment. For example, I studied Ayurvedic herbalism with a doctor in Rishikesh in India many years ago, and a lot of his potions were remedies that had been handed down from generation to generation of certain herbal combinations that work in synergy to heal a certain disease. And it was, a certain amount of this, a certain amount of that, and it's that alchemy of combining these certain properties from these certain plants that will create a key to unlock an illness. And it's also that psychological aspect as well. So yeah, we need to take responsibility and be our own healers. We can ask for advice, we can do research and study, and we can practically learn these techniques, and no one else is going to do it for you. That's where that accountability, self-responsibility comes in with the process, and there is no arrival point. I love that. I think it's so true. It's a continuous journey, and there's many cycles that we can undertake. And if we want to get to higher realms of consciousness, it's imperative we clean out our physical bodies. And then emotional and spiritual will come, because they all work in synergy with one another. And without one, we don't have the other. So there's going to have to be a lot of detoxification. The NAC I've just found phenomenal. I've been taking it for a few months, and it really clears mucus out of the body. NAC is acetylcysteine, N-acetylcysteine. So I have about 2,000 mg a day, but you can build up to that. Start with 500 and work your way up. I usually have it before food, but some people are saying it's easier after they've eaten. I really don't think it matters. It's just finding what works for you. A lot of, we look at allopathic medicine, and there's such a strictness that has to be there, because a lot of these things are actually poisoned. So the dosage and stuff like that is so important. Or look, in my opinion, a lot of those things, there's a better alternative, but they're not using it. So with herbalism, it's fun because you can play. There are certain herbs you need to be careful with. There's certain things you need to watch for with, especially with the antiparasitics. If you're pregnant, don't take antiparasitics. Very important. Do it after, and don't do it whilst breastfeeding either. So there are things like that you need to be aware of. But if you've done your dieta with a few different herbs, then you can really start to experiment with different ways of ingesting them, working with them, creating sprays, face oils, soaps, there's so many different ways, teas, different blends, seeing what works together, seeing what doesn't, trusting in your own intuition with that process. You can make a beautiful tea that's going to clear and cleanse things. And, at the moment, a lot of people are making high shikimic acid teas with the pine, the spruce. We've also got the star anise is really good, fennel, schisandra berry, so peppermint once again. So all these things together in a tea can be just absolutely wonderful to counteract some of the things that are going on. And the beauty of herbs are they're multidimensional, and they work on many different levels. So it's not just the one ailment it's going to work on. It's going to work on the entire body, and all the different systems, and how you see the wholeness in healing instead of the parts. Like allopathy is all about focusing on a particular part and analysing and dissecting and testing and treating just that area, instead of seeing the whole systems and how they all interact. And for example, fear is a huge one to create dis-ease in the body, illness, anxiety, all these things manifest disease. So being really aware of fear and being able to shift the polarity into courage. And stand fearless. Even though you feel the fear, allow it to be transmuted. It's a very conscious process, and it takes practice. It's not like, it's going to happen straight away and it's really easy. This is part of the challenge. And also all the shadow things that will arise through our journey, our issues with ourself, our self-worth, our inner critic, our negative self-talk, all these things, we all have it to a degree. So it's enabling ability to purge that consciously, along with that physical cleansing and clearing. Fasting is another brilliant way. I have a friend who's been doing incredibly long water fasts, and that takes great discipline, and I'm so impressed with his ability to do that. And I do more intermittent fasting. I think that's really helpful. Also with the smoothie I talk about, some days I'll just have that and wait till dinner time to eat something, and just spend the whole day just with that in my system. And it gives me enough energy to function because I live a relatively busy life. So it really helps to have that sustenance, but not the solid food that one has to digest, because when you're digesting, you're not able to clear things out as easily. The body's a bit more sluggish. The intestines are blocked, so cleaning out the intestinal tract, healing the gut, making broths and teas and stuff like this. There's certain, if you have stomach issues, there's certain herbs you can take to heal the stomach lining and stuff like this. Chia is great because of its kind of mucus, and flaxseed and stuff, like it's kind of gluggy, and it's easy for the body to digest, and it can actually help heal the intestinal tract. Same with the aloe vera, once again, beautiful for healing our insides. Papaya, all these type of foods, very good on the gut. Buckwheat, so that it's discovering what works for you. Alfalfa is another brilliant one. There's so many incredible things in nature that we can incorporate into our diet and go back to the old school protocol of, thy food is thy medicine, that Hippocratic oath that most mainstream medical practitioners have completely forgotten about. The other one is do no harm. But thy food is thy medicine, this is huge. And it's been so removed from the modern day society. So much of the food now is just devoid of any nutrients. So we do have to supplement, we do have to substitute, we do have to rearrange things, we do have to start giving up one thing and bringing something else in. For example, if you really like cake, and you want to stay off these sugars, and like I really say to people, stop all refined white sugar and any cane sugar of any kind. Most of it's probably genetically engineered and heavily sprayed, and it's a white powder. All white powders aren't really good for us. So giving up sugar, it's not easy. It's an addiction, like coffee and all the other things. But it can be so beneficial, even decreasing it majorly. And you can find substitutes. So initially, I do encourage people to still have sweet things, but from a more whole food perspective. So maple syrup's awesome because it is really high in minerals, like a high-grade maple syrup. You can get a lot of nourishment from, and it's sweet and delicious. So you can make some tasty, beautiful, like cake with maple syrup and dates and cacao or almond or whatever it is, some decadently delicious thing, and it's so nourishing, and it's sweet, so it's that replacement instead of having some cake from the bakery that's made out of white refined sugar, flour, canola oil, all these things that are not good for the body. They feed the parasite, they create disharmony, and they create infection, they create all these things, gut, leaky gut and all these type of things. It eradicates the good flora that exists within the intestines that we need to replenish as well. So that comes back to probiotic foods, fermented foods, stuff like this, making your own sauerkraut, kimchi, kombucha, kefir, pickled whatevers, vegetables. There's so many ways you can ferment things and create good flora to reseed the gut, especially after a parasite cleanse. It's really important to give back to the body and nourish yourself with beautiful minerals and herbs from plant-based sources and antioxidants. Very, very important. You really want to restore and give the body all the tools it needs to be able to reach a state of homeostasis, so you can eliminate and you can also strengthen and fortify. And spiritual practice is also really important. Finding ways to consciously protect your energy field, be accountable, reflect on one's processes and be honest with oneself, and surround yourself with others who are also on that level is really, really imperative. And putting up a strong boundary if people aren't on that level, you can still interact, but limit it. I think it's be around people that encourage your journey and your process and are also undertaking their own. And that is so beautiful because we can all inspire each other. And that's what this is about. We all have key components here. Not one of us has all the answers, but working together in a truthful, authentic place of integrity, we can do incredible things, and we can create a very healthy society and world for people to exist in and flourish and grow and really be in their full potential. And part of that is that journey to heal. And it's not going to happen overnight, especially, if you've lived a long life of toxicity. It's a process and it takes great patience, but the rewards are real. With the diligence comes the rewards, and breathing exercises also really important for centering, grounding, building up one's core. I'm a yoga teacher, but I come from the perspective of the 3 core chakra system built on the 9 and the 12. And the fact that the core is kind of your center, and strengthening this will strengthen your field, your spirit, your will. It is very powerful. And to be in your highest potential, your core needs to be strong. So physical exercises that build up the core are really, really good. Same with breathing from the core. So proper, pranayama, ujjayi breathing. But really working, like I see that the core heart, kind of, so the stomach and the heart area is this core area, and also around the thoracics and the lumbar. And this is where you want to strengthen your abs, all this area. And that's also your gut, your intestinal area, everything there. That's where it all begins. So also visualizing energy coming from the earth like a circuit into the core, and also coming from source into the core, and also removing back to source and back to the earth anything that is no longer needed, and burning it up. So during something like a breath of fire, which is a fantastic pranayama technique that does really help strengthen and fortify the energy field. So worth checking out. The full breath, with the mindfulness of one's breathing, of one's heartbeat, of the rhythms of the body, and really becoming more finely attuned to the subtleties of the senses, and the thoughts that arise, the emotions that arise, being the observer here, and also being the one, the alchemist, who can transmute and burn things up and transfigure things into a place that is most beneficial. The place of, what some call the higher self, which is just you in your utmost potential, and full flourishing, soul spark. So this is definitely a big part of it. And once again, the fearlessness. Fear it feeds a parasite, and just maintaining a gentle approach, but with diligence and discipline, and cultivate that over time. And if you do slip up, I find, if I have a period where I'll do a few naughty things that aren't so good for my body, I make up for it. You might have done it, it's done, you ate that bit of junk food, or you went on a bit of a bender, or whatever. So how can you replenish that on an extra level afterwards or during that process to, just kind of a bit of remedy to keep the equilibrium within your homeostasis. So I found I used to work at festivals a lot, quite hard work, very long hours, on my feet, a lot of people, a lot of stimulation, exposure. And I always took, a lot of good herbs, super greens every day, like drinking a big, couple of liters of that with, all the goods in there, some medicinal mushrooms and like not psychoactive ones, but actual medicinal ones like chaga and reishi and stuff like this, and or ashwagandha, or 5-HTP, you know, like just finding the things that are going to replenish you. Drinking alkaline water, I even found really good. I've had this kind of bicarb mix that mineralizes and alkalizes the water, and I drink water is so imperative. If you have a spring accessible that is not contaminated, go and get the water from the spring and drink that ancient water from deep under the ground. Especially, you know, if there's fracking in your area, maybe not. Check the water. You know, a lot of water's been contaminated here on Earth, and I really, really hope that we can figure out innovation to purify the water supplies. But getting pure, unadulterated, real water into your diet is, I think, the key, most important thing. And if you can't have access to it, there are osmosis techniques now, reverse osmosis. Check that out. Remineralizing, structured water, all these different ways of cleaning our water so it's most beneficial, because the water's going to be the flush. And if the water's got, you know, hexosilico-fluoric acid in it, it's not going to be very conducive with cleaning the body. It's going to be hard and toxic. So we want that purifying, you know, real spring of life water to nourish our soul and clean our body and have a proper bathe, not a toxic one. So yeah, just looking into the water, even rainwater now, we have to be wary. You know, the skies have been quite contaminated. So even finding a filtration method for this, it might not have to be as harsh as reverse osmosis. But look, really looking at the way things are, reverse osmosis and real spring water are probably the only two options left that aren't contaminated now. Even as a child, here in Australia, I remember it was a lot easier to get clean water. And it was a big shock to me, because growing up, before there was a lot of things getting sprayed or anything like that, the sky here was very clean. I lived in the country, and we could drink rainwater out of the tap, and it was divine. It was so fresh, and it was so full of life and nature and beautiful. So I grew up drinking this, and then I noticed, you know, the skies becoming more contaminated, and we had those giant fires here, and that put a lot of toxins in the air as well. After the fires, I couldn't drink the water out of my tank for a couple of years, like almost up until now. It was so bad. It took a while to clean out. So yeah, the water's been really contaminated, and then traveling all over the world and just seeing how difficult it is to get real water. And most places in the world, they're selling bottled water in plastic. So you're getting all the PCPs or whatever it is from the plastic, or the phytoestrogens and stuff like that, which is another key part of all this. We've got to rebalance the endocrine system, and all these things are endocrine interferers or disruptors. So yeah, that's another huge element. Our hormonal system is being put under a lot of strain here for men and women. So yeah, finding herbs and other substances that are going to assist in balancing and dietary techniques and stuff like that are going to balance our endocrine system. Really, really important. There's certain herbs that work better for men or women, depending on the symptoms that one's experiencing, because some people might have too much testosterone, not enough, too much estrogen, progesterone. You know, there's a lot of different ways that's being imbalanced, and all these toxins are definitely interfering with that. Another one is the atrazine, which is like a chemical they use in food production, and a pesticide, and it creates a lot of estrogen, and I think it's turning male fish female and things like this. So yeah, it can't be good for our development, especially for people growing up with this saturation. You know, you look at the people, the oldest people alive on the planet, you know, the people in their 90s and early 100s now, and you know, they grew up in a world where there were chemicals, but not to the degree that we have experienced, or especially the younger people now are experiencing. It's just insane, the saturation. And I think that's why these people lived a lot longer and their health problems weren't as bad, because their constitutions are quite strong because they grew up eating how I'm talking, permaculture, locally grown, organic, non-sprayed food that, it's healthy and rich in minerals and nutrients. The soil would have had more minerals. It hadn't been depleted, which is so sad because we can give back to the soil, through permaculture techniques, which is just ancient farming techniques. It's nothing new. We can use compost and shit and all these incredible methods to replenish our soil. Effective microorganisms, charcoal, there's so many good techniques out there to rebuild our soil and put those minerals and vitamins back into the soil, and then that can go into the food and that can go into our guts. So there's this connection here from the soil to the gut and the methods that are used. And unfortunately, the collective widespread method is extremely destructive to our health. So yeah, please, we need a food revolution. We need to go back to basics, back to roots with this. Sure, there's a few things we might be able to still import, export, but primarily everything needs to come from a local source and be grown ethically and without the chemicals. It has to stop. And we have to create microclimates. We have to rebuild our soil. We have to reintroduce native species. We need to create wildlife corridors. We need to bring the Gaian elemental energy back into the earth, because that is our healer as well. And we cannot heal without that connection, because we are it. We are her. We are the earth's heart. The earth is the heart, I feel, of the cosmos. It's an important library of beautiful information, genetic library, when you look at all the species and the variations and the beauty, and it's absolutely incredible, and it's being destroyed at an exponential rate of turning the parasite is infecting and creating a dead, concrete, sterile, toxic environment. So, this is happening on the collective level and the physical level with individuals' physiological systems. So we need to counteract that. So by all of us healing, by all of us putting in that effort and taking action to be our own healers and to put our bodies back into the best place they can be with utmost effort and care, we can impact this reality on a very, very powerful level, because we are all part of it, and the more people healed, it's going to generate an energy frequency that is going to assist with our transition coming into these new cycles that we're experiencing. So yeah, there's a lot of things to go into. I think I'll leave it at that for now, and come back and maybe discuss a few more things, or if anyone has any questions. I'm self-taught with these things, but I've had experiences in my life that has given me no choice but to heal thyself and know thyself over time. And I'm still discovering a lot, and I'm still learning, and utmost humility here, and with my own process and others, because there are things I've learned, and I've had to change opinions about certain things, refute certain things, and other people might have a different opinion about it. There's certain things that are still quite new with how we use them. Like a good example is borax or boron, and there's different opinions about how to use borax and boron. And I know it has medicinal qualities. I've used it myself, but there's discrepancies, and I haven't really determined which way is the safest way to use it. So I'm still not promoting it too much, because I really want to know, like, 'cause some people are saying, have this wild mule, whatever, borax, that just straight old cleaning product. And then others are saying having the mineral boron, which is more food grade. And then there's different arguments to say which one's better. So yeah, it's really about discernment. Also, there's also a lot of things I think that are marketed as cure-all panaceas that may not be very beneficial. They could be actually harmful. and they could be putting more of this nano stuff into our bodies and creating actual disharmony. So it's really important to just do as much research and study into this. Zeolites is a good example for me. I took it for some time, and learning more about the composition of it and the fact that it's got very high metal content in it, such as aluminium, it made me go, well, how can this be beneficial for clearing out heavy metals when it actually contains it, and not in a homeopathic form, but in an actual, MG form. So we don't really want to be doing this. So in my opinion, I don't think it's the best thing to take. I think a lot of these clays actually aren't very good, and we need to be very careful with them because we don't know what trace elements are actually in there. Same with diatomaceous earth ingesting. I ingested that for some time, and yeah, it does kill parasites, but the silica is also very abrasive, and I think it can do your gut a bit of harm. So it's something I learnt from that. May not have been the best idea, but it can be used topically in many ways. Is fantastic. Even bathing in it, it's great, and putting it on your plants to stop things from eating your plants and stuff like that. My friend dusts it on with a sieve, and she says it stops all the critters from eating her vegetables. So yeah, there's definitely uses for these things, but it's just being careful when it's more volatile things, more extreme and experimental. There's even things about ingesting turpentine, and I did have success with this too, but I really encourage people to look into it properly and really research every detail before doing something, compared to just taking something like tulsi or I don't know what's in it, lemon balm, or one of these more gentle food-like herbs that you can take every day. You could have 10 cups of it a day and it would still do you good. There's not a lot of harmful side effects, but some of the things we do need to be discerning and careful with. So just that's a note here. I'm self-taught through what's happened to me, but I've also studied under different herbalists, naturopaths, Chinese medicine doctors. I've spent my whole life in this world of herbalism and natural healing through my journey growing up, being raised by parents who were into that, and that was the way we did things in my household. It wasn't mainstream medical model at all. It was all natural. So I was very, very fortunate to grow up in that environment and just have that as a natural thing. That we did, and having my mother teach me how to make tinctures and salves and herbal creams and all these different medicines and how different ways of using things and identifying things. And so it came very naturally to me through my environment. So very, very fortunate. And that's why I feel I'm sharing this stuff, because a lot of people ask me day to day, what can I do for this? Or I seem to be in my local area a go-to person that if people know me, they know they can ask me about these things. And it's about recognizing that. And look, I'm not always going to be fully correct, and there might be more I'll discover and learn. And if you have anything to add and share, I really encourage that too, because we're all learning and growing through this process. And there's so many great things out there, I've discovered. I was taking some very high quality gumby off an Indigenous woman who is a naturopath, and it was brilliant. Very powerful antiviral as well. Antiparasitics and antivirals, in their natural herbal form. Fantastic. We've got all our elderberries, echinacea, all these type of things. Absolutely, cat's claw, the gumby, so the gubbagy. So there's some incredible native plants